Welcome back, everyone. Today's news is absolutely goddamn huge because Blizzard just committed to replacing combat add-ons in WoW. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Now, Ian doesn't say it outright, but over the course of this 45-minute WoWcast with Dratnos and Max, he makes it very clear indeed. They kind of don't want you using combat add-ons. At least they don't want you to feel like you need them. In fact, in the future, they may even kill them. That means weak auras, deadly boss mods, details, and it also means Hikili and GSE. But before they pull the trigger, they know they need to make sure that, when they pull it, they won't miss. And in patch 11.1.7, they're starting the process in a fairly major way. Coming in the patch, which we expect to be late June, there's a new feature called Rotation Assist. And it does one very simple thing. It highlights the next button that you should press on your bars. Now, Ian actually said that this will be manually updated based on the latest theory crafting, and that it will even detect the number of targets nearby, and it will also consider your selected talents. Which is wild, and it basically is Hikili completely dealt with as a thing. But they're actually killing two birds with one stone here. This also has a single button assistant with it. I've seen a lot of the reactions to this. Really, it's fairly interesting. It's an accessibility feature. I think it's kind of sick. So, it does exactly what it basically sounds like. When 11.1.7 drops in, you'll be able to play WoW as a DPS with just one button. Yes. Cue all the memes. This one keybind button will automatically become the next recommended ability in your rotation, but there is a cost. There always must be a cost, and in this case, it will add 0.03 seconds to your global cooldown. Now that is about 10 to 20% slower depending on your spec, and of course the amount of haste your character has. That's fairly substantial. Look, it is a absolutely ginormous nerf compared to doing it manually. And through the lens of killing add-ons, it completely kills the need for GSE in most cases, and that means if you use those add-ons, you should be able to uninstall them and essentially never have to think about them again, which is wild. Now, I said that there should be a reason for that. I'll get to that later because Blizzard actually didn't stop there. The WoWcast was a kind of whopping 45 minutes long, and that was long enough for Ian to go into details, right? How they're actually planning to change the design of World of Warcraft going forward, and most importantly, the why. And yes, weak auras absolutely dominated the conversation here, because it does actually dominate how World of Warcraft is played, and it actually dominates parts of how it's even designed, because they don't make the game in a bubble. So, the cooldown manager and this rotation assistant essentially deal with class weak auras. Blizzard's next problem, though, is a harder one. The raid weak auras that do auto-assignments and things like that basically kind of compute out what you should do so that you don't really have to think about it. And then, of course, the Mythic Plus auras that fill your screen and blast your speakers with alerts so that you don't get killed. It was cool seeing Ian actually grapple with all of this. As Ian puts it, and I'll just directly quote the man, "Well, download this add-on, and this add-on, otherwise you're doing it wrong." That's what Ian said, basically about, well, his own game, and to him it's absolutely a problem. He says that there are certain add-ons that are required, and they don't want to get away from that. So instead, they're going to target every popular add-on. And that means that in the future, they'll be adding damage meters, new nameplates, and even their own in-game DBM, what Ian calls, quote, timeline of possibilities. Now, don't worry, right? Add-ons as a whole are fine. Ian was very careful to repeat that the UI customization part of add-ons, from, say, whatever information that you would like to your quest helpers, those things are all welcome in Blizzard's eyes. Right now, though, their concern is to solve two massive problems that they've identified, and basically, they're trying to save World of Warcraft's future. This is an elephant in the room that for decades, Blizzard have not really dealt with. But, that's actually changing now. This is what's called a desire path. Basically, when people find a better option than an intended path, so many people walk it that it then becomes visible, and that turns it into a proper path. And for Blizzard Entertainment, that's been a problem, right? Learning and playing the game is too complicated, it takes too long, or both. So, Hikili was born, right? That's a natural desire path. Except that it's not, just there. It's not like a normal desire path that's obviously visible. No, you've got to go and get it on a website. So, Hikili and very obviously weak auras are a desire path that you have to go and download. So imagine there's a path like this, but there's a gate on the desire path that needs you to scan a QR code on your phone or visit a website to open. That would be a pain in the ass. The real path is too long, but the shortcut needs you to jump through hoops. That is basically why the rotation assist exists. They basically want to make sure this path, the one that everybody clearly wants to walk, as is, evidenced by their literal actions, that it's visible, that it's clear, and safe for all players. That's their first goal here. They want to let players just log in and play the game, no downloading and configuring a whole ton of add-ons, no feeling anxious about having the wrong setup, no getting frustrated by an absolutely gigantic wall to climb over to even get started. And while experienced vets like you and me may think add-ons are super simple, takes zero time, to a lot of other people, they don't understand it. It just exists as a weird cognitive barrier. They don't know how to engage with it. And to them, it's a wall, and that hurts World of Warcraft. And if you don't think this is a problem, listen to the Wowcast yourself and just hear Ian talk. A few times throughout the video, he calls out player numbers, and he throws out terms like lots and large majority. Now, obviously, we don't have access to the data that Blizzard has, but we can take a look at CurseForge. Hakili has got 56 million downloads, it's ranked 17th most popular add-on, it's around the same level as SimCraft and Handy Notes. That's a well-worn path. People want those things. But there's something else that's important to Blizzard as well. So, sticking to the metaphor, the desire path existing proves that the other path, the official path, isn't working for everyone, right? So in other words, the game is too hard to play for many, many people. But that's not something Blizzard can fix overnight, and it may not be something they, even want to fix. For years, since Mists of Pandaria in fact, World of Warcraft has had an identity crisis. Every expansion classes are continually made harder or easier, all trying to find the Goldilocks zone. And now Blizzard are officially admitting that they've given up. Perhaps that they've worked out that they can't find that. And obviously, they can't find the Goldilocks zone because players are not the same. For everyone who clearly loves making talent builds and going in real deep, there are a dozen who would rather just log in and press the damn button that glows. We know that because it's how they play the game. So instead of stressing out trying to design a game that works for absolutely everybody, so, you make it easier and more approachable, but now the hardcore players are pissed off, well, now they can kind of just relax, and they can make the class gameplay fun for people who want the mastery, while people who don't want the mastery can use this other official path instead. And that goes double for the single button assistant. By Ian's own admission, it is an accessibility feature. I definitely want you to think about that first. Imagine, look, for whatever reason that it's hard for you to use a keyboard, right? That can range from, I don't know, a birth thing, an IED, anything. Well, the ability to play regular World of Warcraft like this could in a way be kind of life-changing, especially if that's your main hobby. I think that's an amazing thing. It's great Blizzard are taking that seriously. So yes, it's an accessibility feature, but it's also there for people who really, really simply do not care about what buttons they press. Now, the penalty in terms of your global cooldown is strong enough that you'll never want to use this in any hard content, right? It just won't be used in that hard content. But I'll be honest, it still is going to be a huge buff for anyone who just is randomly smashing buttons. The people who end up getting like a 1% LFR parse. Somehow. That, will actually be good for you. Because if those people are doing more damage, everyone's going to have a better time. So in a way, it's kind of genius. It's part accessibility feature, part brilliant shortcut to keep the skill floor low while removing the usual problems that causes. Bringing down the skill ceiling and pissing off your most core dedicated players. So I suppose your LFR runs just got at least, twice as fast. There's a second reason then, and it's what Max and Dratno spent most of the episode talking about, and that is raid design. So, the arms race between add-on developers and WoW's raid designers has hit a point where everyone is tired of it. Ian said their goal is disarmament instead of escalation. So, the way every boss has a billion swirlies now? Well, it turns out that's not because Blizzard hates us, and it's not because they love swirlies. It's because weak auras end up handling almost everything else in big raids, and AoE vomit is the only way they can reliably kill us. And obviously, killing us is the goal, but everybody knows that that's not a fun way to be killed by a game designer. And this is now hitting a breaking point in World of Warcraft. So they want to make more interesting raids that we will find more fun, and that means they're starting the long process of replacing weak auras. Now, you may expect some pushback from Dratnos or Max. But the truth is, everyone is tired of it, not just Blizzard. Raiders and Mythic Plus players don't want to spend hours downloading and configuring add-ons and weak auras, but they feel that they have to because the game has been getting harder and harder. WoW is mechanically complex. And if we look at the success of this Mythic Plus season compared to all the others, it's obvious that it's because Blizzard toned down tons and tons of nonsense in the game. Affixes are mostly gone, mob packs cast less, important casts are more visible to people, everything basically that means you don't need 7 add-ons screaming at you. You can basically just use your eyes and see what's going on. And that's actually been our experience clearing Heroic this tier. We did not mandate that our raid team use a weak auras pack, and we didn't handle assignments automatically with deadly boss mods. The actual strategies were simple enough that we could just do all of that ourselves. It was fun. Plus, the bosses, having obvious visual and audio cues for all of their important attacks, meant that even the timers themselves are starting to become unnecessary. And going off script here and speaking personally, I actually did this entire raid tier without DBM. Well, not the entire raid tier, I think there were a few bosses towards the end, but basically, I turned DBM off to see what it was like, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. Anyway, it's no coincidence that for our team, this has been one of the most fun tiers in a long, long time, because it basically turns out simple is better in so many cases. Complexity for the sake of complexity is, well, just a bad signal to noise ratio. And this is Blizzard's public commitment to making sure that WoW is more simple, with less hoops to jump through, less pain points, and more fun for everyone. I really do like that. Ian talked about the difference between complexity and difficulty, and yeah, sometimes something is overly complex, it's a bit silly and arcane, and it ends up not really being fun. But if you look at some of the best games out there, even that have hardcore gameplay like Elden Ring, there is a tremendous simplicity to the core gameplay loop. There's another side to this as well, it's one you've probably thought of. With official versions of the necessary add-ons and a one-button mode, yeah, World of Warcraft is getting a lot closer to being ready for a console release. I think that's a long, long way into the future because, well, as much as all of this is good, I can't just sit here and pretend that everything's going to go to plan. Time for a dose of reality. The cooldown manager shipped in 11.1.5, and for tons of specs, the promises of fixes that were made in the PTR forums kinda just never happened. That's really bad. Ian said the rotation assist will be kept up to date with theory crafting and talents, and it feels impossible to trust that right now. Okay? It kind of does to me. Now, it's actually on the PTR already, and while it does seem to work quite well, across our testing there have been some massive issues right away. On Feral Druid, it didn't use Berserk, Incarnation, or Convoke whatsoever. Now, it was decent on the spec otherwise, but it never popped major cooldowns. It's a bit weird. That could kind of make it unusable. Now, for Demon Hunter, it never popped the Hunt or Vengeful Retreat to activate the Inertia damage buff, which does make it totally unusable. That said, if you had a movement build and a one-button gameplay thing, I could see that leading to a lot of accidental deaths. Anyway, those are issues. Now, all of these are easy fixes, I think. But this is Blizzard Entertainment that we're talking about here, and I can't forget the cooldown manager. They're pushing out patches so fast that nearly every single patch comes out basically unplayable. I've had to make a Blizzard, please take quality seriously video for every minor patch, I think, so far, which is ridiculous. I don't want to be doing that. Now, this is all an amazing idea in paper, but it's hard to imagine that they'll be able to keep this tool as perfect as they would want, given the track record that we've seen. Now, of course, the same will go for all of their add-on replacements. Can they really support a tool that's as amazing as Details? I struggle to imagine, I suppose, a world where official Blizzard damage meters will let me post in party chat how many interrupts were used, or any of the other detailed things that we can check out in Details. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see, but to be honest with you right now, I have faith in Blizzard's very large strategy of what they want to accomplish, right? But what I don't have faith in is their ability to execute on the week-by-week basis. Now, there have been good spots, like, say, Season 2 Mythic Plus, but I have to say, patch 11.1.5 did shake me a little bit in the bad quality of its delivery. They need to figure out how to make all of these grand promises a reality and not just tick off a box and then say they've done it, but to actually make it happen, make it work, make it robust. That is obviously not the only issue that's going on here. There are other ones, like learning as an example. Ian talks about the rotation assist as if it's a learning tool, but I actually think that could fail. I think people who want to learn the rotation manually will just go and learn it, right, as they do today. And people who don't will probably just use the tool instead. I don't really think there are any shortcuts to being interested in mastery in a video game. You know, mastery, the like human thing, not the stat inside WoW. And by offering this shortcut, we maybe will end up with fewer players exploring the game's depth and then falling in love with it. A counter-argument could be that this would open up the game to so many more people that, well, there's so many more people who could potentially fall in love with it and become interested, and then become players who care deeply about skill expression and mastery. But I suppose if you remove the obstacle to climb, people will never find out that they really enjoy climbing obstacles. But look, if that's the price to pay to let millions of other players actually get into and enjoy the game, well, that's Ian's call to make as game director. I wish him the best in that, and overall, I'm very supportive of what Blizzard wants to do here. Replacing those kind of core add-ons that you feel like you need, that could be huge. Even if it's not huge for us existing players, it will be massive for the perception of World of Warcraft, and that will be important for the game's future. Let me know how things are for you, and if all this has you wanting to roll a few more alts, check out our video on the Winds of Mysterious Fortune and all the different ways that you can make the best of it.